Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the evening edition of the Humans to Mars Summit 2020. We have had an incredible day, and we're so glad that you're all here to join us for our final panel of the evening, and it's Influencing Mars. So what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about all kinds of amazing things, and it's really going to be around the idea that you can have a voice in the science industry, and social media can kind of be your way in. And everyone here has an incredible story to share. They come from all different backgrounds. They do different things, from engineers, science communicators, future Mars walker, and a space geologist, podcaster. We're touching on everything here, and I'm really excited to bring on our panel today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and we're going to go to my hey, there we go. I got it right the first time. To my left, and we're going to start with Deanna. Deanna Alsindy, give us a quick intro to who you are, your platform, and kind of what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna Alsindy. I am a propulsion engineer and the Arabian Stargazer. I founded the Arabian Stargazer on Instagram in 2018, where I tried to influence people about space and science communication bilingually in Arabic and English. So if you guys after this awesome webcast with all these awesome people, you can follow me on the Arabian Stargazer, and we can continue the conversation there.
Most excellent. Next, we're going to go to Athena Brensberger, aka Astro Athens. Athena, tell everybody hello, where you come from, what you do.
Hello, everyone. I am coming from New York. I'm a New Yorker, and I am a science communicator specializing in astrophysics. I created my platform known as Astro Athens and do everything from DIY science experiments to kind of understand what's happening in our cosmos, to attending rocket launches and bringing you guys behind the scenes look of what it's like to actually launch a rocket into space. And yeah, you can follow me on Astro Athens. I've also got a website, astroathens.com, and I'll see you guys on there.
Awesome and wonderful haircut, looking amazing.
Thank you.
You may have watched the Super Bowl earlier this year, and you probably saw the next face. So the young, brilliant, wonderful Alyssa Carson. Alyssa, tell us a little bit about yourself for the three people that don't know who you are, like everybody else on this panel, and all the cool things that you do.
Yeah, basically just a Louisiana native, and I've kind of always been interested in space and the idea of becoming an astronaut one day. And so I kind of took that and ran with it. So just kind of been building a resume and trying to do as much as I can to eventually apply to the astronaut selection process in the future. So I'm currently studying astrobiology and going to eventually become officially an astrobiologist. But at the time, doing citizen science research, inspiring other kids to follow their own dreams, and getting as involved as I can in the space and science community, and inspiring other kids to also get involved, because space is just so cool, so you might as well.
Couldn't agree more. So next up, let's go to Kenny Harris II, doing amazing, wonderful things. Found him recently on Instagram, and we became quick friends last night on a phone call. And I know that a couple people out there today that were on the summit were a couple of your mentors. So I know you had to be smiling today. So Kenny, welcome. Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Definitely. Thanks so much for having me, guys. My name's Kenneth Harris. Go by Kenny F. Harris on social media platforms. I've been working on projects at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center here in Maryland for the past 12 years. I've actually done 6 different missions, anywhere from, MMS, GPM to James Webb Space Telescope. So some really cool, interesting missions. I currently advise on a project called Hermes for the Lunar Gateway, which is part of the Artemis program. So really happy to be here. Really happy to be with this great panel as well.
And we are so glad to have you. And next we're going to go with Karina Perez. Karina does all kinds of great things, everything from she used to be a cosplayer and used to go to Comic-Cons to the space industry now, and she puts on some really amazing events. Karina, too, just got her hair done. It's another color, and that's been her thing this spring and summer, as it has been for many of us. I'm getting ready to shave my head because, stress. So, Karina, give us a real quick intro to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Karina, and when I'm stressed, I decide to change my hair color. So that's been this whole quarantine. So I work with the Aerospace Industry Association doing strategic partnerships and in general strategic initiatives to get people to know our industry. So trying to reach audiences that don't necessarily know about us. That includes going to South by Southwest, Comic-Cons, and a bunch of other things to be able to bring in audiences who already like nerdy things and into the space world. Recently, we partner with Private Division, who are the developers and publishers of Kerbal Space Program, to do a Kerbal Space Program competition for some young rocketeers. So that's kind of the breadth of my work, just trying to get more people involved in our industry and finding new and exciting ways to get them in. And so, yeah, if you're interested in learning more of what I do or some of the initiatives, you can just find me with at Karina in Space.
Wonderful, wonderful to have you. And as we continue on, the next one up is Raquel and Nuno. Congratulations, by the way. You got a little one at home. If everybody's been watching on Instagram, she's been sharing her uber adorable baby. Nobody's surprised between you and Derek. You both are obnoxiously handsome. We appreciate that. Making me feel bad. But you're incredible. We're glad to have you on. Talk to us a little bit about what it is you study, your platform, and all the cool things you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ron. I'm Raquel. I'm a PhD student at UCLA, and I study planetary geology. I'm involved in a couple of NASA missions, so that's really exciting. And I think the reason I started doing outreach through social media was because when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I knew I liked space, but I didn't know all the jobs available to me out there. And so I didn't know that planetary science was a thing. And so I wanted to tell other people about this super exciting field that you can be a part of, that is so interdisciplinary. If you're like me, you really like different things. Planetary science is super exciting. And so that's what I wanted to bring to people, and also so people know what a scientist does, what does a PhD student does, and what does a mom who's a scientist do as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And last up is Jake Robbins, who has an absolutely incredible podcast called WeMartians Podcast. And he and I both do podcasts, and that's one of the reasons I love having him on, is he's got one of the other most popular ones about Mars. So how can we not have him on too? And you're going to have a very unique view that you'll get to share with us a little bit later about how science communication podcasting is different than other science communication. But give us a breakdown of what you do, how you got into this, and how I can find your address to come steal your entire background, because it's amazing.
Thanks so much for having me. And I got to say, it's really difficult to follow all the amazing people on this panel. But I'm basically a space nobody. I have no space background at all. I am not a scientist. I am not an engineer, but I fell in love with space, and I just wanted to be a part of it. And the one thing I realized I was good at was talking into a microphone. And so that's what I decided to do. So I do a podcast called WeMartians and another one called Off-Nominal. And, basically we bring on scientists, engineers, communicators, anyone really interesting who has a good story to tell. And we just try and really unpack it. So I love getting deep into the details. And like I said, we'll talk about why podcasting is cool. But one of the reasons you can really kind of unpack something really, really well. And it's been a lot of fun. So I am just jazzed to be here and talk more about how social media connects podcasting to the rest of the world.
Love it, love it. So, let's start off the first thing. This is about influencing Mars and getting people interested in the space community and how those things happen. So let's talk a little bit to each one of you about how you created your platforms and what it is you do. Diana, I'll go with you first. You went from almost 0 to 100,000 followers in around a year, because of, and this is something that's really important to talk about, is reaching out to an entirely different community. One of my favorite stories that you told me was, there's not a word for rocket, it's peaceful missile in the Arabic language. And I was actually talking to Macaulay the other night on my show, and he was talking about an event that he did with you. And I just love that, getting out there and reaching to a whole new audience, and you do a wonderful job of it. So tell us a little bit about the platform and how you crafted it and how you were so successful so quickly.
Yeah, I think me making it successful wasn't the perfect recipe of creating a public platform on Instagram about space. I believe that region was just so thirsty for having someone who talks about space and communicate about space and just have a face to it. So in 2018, I was working at Virgin Orbit. It was a year after I graduated college, and I just didn't feel really satisfied to have just building rockets for a living. It was an awesome job, but still, I wanted to do more and serve my community and provide those resources that I didn't have when I was a student in college. So I created the Arabian Stargazer, and I wanted to target it specifically to the Middle Eastern region because it wasn't available. I searched YouTube, I searched Instagram, Facebook to see someone who is speaking about space science communication and space exploration, specifically in Arabic. and the material there was very boring and very dry, and no student or kid will sit down and listen to whatever material that was online. So I created the Arabian Stargazer and started with short bilingual post on why do we go to space. I created a series on how space exploration helped us here on Earth. I started sharing tips on what I actually used when I was in college, when I wanted to pick a major and I didn't really know what available jobs there is out there. And my ultimate mission was to create space camps all across the Middle East, just like we have here in America and Europe and the UK. A bunch of kids can go and learn a lot of skill sets about science that you don't necessarily learn in school or in your university or just in your career in general. So I wanted to test the water, created the Arabian Stargazer, started speaking Arabic in my own Iraqi slang because I'm originally from Iraq. I have an accent. I've been here for 11 years only. And people started being interested. So I knew that there is an audience out there. And if I continue consistently share these resources and opportunities, a lot of people are going to be interested. So that's my really short version of my story.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and you've done amazing work, and we're so glad to have you on here to talk about it tonight. And so, you know, of course, next up, we got to go to Athena. Athena, you have, I think you were one of the first science communicators to take advantage of TikTok. Not only do you had a YouTube channel and Instagram and all the stuff that you and I have done together, but seriously, this is important because you started something and then a lot of other people followed with that. And you've done a wonderful job with it. You know, now Emily Calandrelli's on there. She's killing it. And a lot of others, probably some people that are on here too. But what made you say this is a new one and this is something that I should hop onto and take advantage of? Is it the place to be right now, other than the fact China's stealing all your information? You know, is that
that was going to be my joke.
But seriously though, let's talk a little bit about that and how you decided to take advantage of this new and exciting platform that everybody is on.
Yeah, TikTok is such an interesting thing in itself. Just that app alone, the demographic and the age target is so different than like Instagram, YouTube. Although YouTube and Instagram also have quite a wide range, TikTok was like very specifically targeted to like Gen Z, like super duper young, and it's also very international, which I thought was pretty awesome. And I thought, okay, if I can relay a concept in astrophysics in a 60-second video, then that means that I'm fully being able to do what I set out to do, which is communicate science, something that can be a very complicated subject like cosmology, in a relatively digestible way. And TikTok allows for that, and also allows for creativity. And that's what I loved so much about it, because I mean, before I went into astrophysics, I was an artist my whole life. I was an actor. I went into painting. I went into sculpture. I've always loved art. And so combining art and science, we all know how important that is. And TikTok offered this ability to be able to allow for young people to be their own video editors and create their own concepts. Maybe it's a dance competition, maybe it's a vocal competition, but what I decided to do is instead make it in like a scientific way. And that just was so awesome. I mean, it was just so extraordinary to see so many students coming to me saying, wow, I did this DIY experiment that you showed on like a gravity bowl for extra credit in my class, and it helped so much with my science class. Like, thank you. And so I became devoted to making extra credit for your teachers or for your classes. And that was just like, it was just such an awesome thing. And now, yeah, it's like rapidly grown. And I think so many people are on there now, and it's become so much more of an educational platform, which before it was more so just like kind of for like entertainment of dance competitions, which is awesome, or like voiceovers, which is like pretty fun. But now we see it having this whole different role of science. And I think that that's just so powerful. So as far as where we're standing right now, yeah, it's possible that by mid-September it might completely be gone if it's not bought out by a US company. But, you know, we see now Instagram has Instagram Reels. But I think that there's still something super special from that, and the people that I got to speak to through there and connect with, that forever served its purpose, even if it's gone after this.
Well, I mean, it's still wonderful that you were able to capitalize on it and do some really wonderful things and teach a whole different demographic about it. You know, it is a Gen Z platform, except for the occasional old guy like me on there, like, oh, I want to do funny stuff and talk like Carmen while I'm talking about space, guys. And, you know, so there's people that do silly stuff like that. But, you know, what you do is wonderful. And it's great how you're reaching out and connecting with people on that platform. So, Raquel, we'll go to you next. I can't think of any other geologists talking about space on Instagram, and you know, and you've got, I mean, your experiences are all over the place, from being behind the scene, working with your partner, to the stuff that you do, and then the mix, and then also being a mom. So let's talk a little bit about the platform. When did it really start to take off for you, and what is it about what you do that you feel connected with people?
Yeah, I think it started taking off. I was on a podcast called Ologies, and I think that yeah. But I've been on Instagram. I think it's about 7 or 8 years, just posting about my life, and then I realized that people were actually just really interested in the science and the behind the scenes of what does a scientist do, what is it really like, and that's when the platform took off. And once I fully embraced the desire that people had to learn, I leaned into that and started putting out more educational content. I think what's really, really powerful about social media is as a recruiting tool. I've done a few NASA socials, and I don't know if people are aware of what NASA social is NASA invites people to come out to events to get behind the scenes of what's happening at NASA. And they don't just ask for a big influence to come out. You can have a small audience, but as long as you have you're helping your community, you can come out and get a behind the scenes view of what NASA does. And it's so exciting. That is such a good strategy that they're doing, and I want my university to start doing things like that, because at UCLA we're doing really, really exciting space research, but I feel like people don't know about it because we're not putting out content. We're not telling people about it. And so that's what I hope to do. I want people to know the exciting work that we're doing in my lab and in my department. So yeah, that's what I do. That's how I come at it.
And so we're gonna bring Kenny back in here. Kenny, let's talk a little bit about the things that you do and that you love, especially with your platform. Education's a really big deal to you, and I know it's something that you and I talked about last night. I'm sure it's going to be even more important here soon. You got the little one on the way. Let's talk a little bit about how you were inspired, some of the people that you've got to work with, formerly at NASA, and you got a new position, right? Let's talk a little bit about that and what it is you do, and how building this platform and speaking to students and teachers and people all around the world, how you kind of how you got into that.
Yeah, so I never really had a plan to build an Instagram platform. In all honesty, I was just going to work at NASA every day, and then I decided, hey, I'll put some stuff on my Instagram, what I'm actually doing. And then I just, me starting an internship at such a young age made me really want to give back to the community in some way. So I decided to first volunteer in my local high school. Just, hey, I'll come talk to your students just about STEAM, different things of that regard, which evolved into going, back to my alma maters, which evolved into me, speaking at conferences and things like that. And it's just kind of a gradual ladder upwards. In terms of the new position, like I said, my most recent position, I worked on JPSS. I was a database lead for them. Now I work on space asset protection. So, securing satellites from cyber threats and physical threats as well. And that's really, really interesting, really fun. Can't get into a lot of details of it, but it's actually a really cool world. Something that I'm definitely new to, because my heart was really in that integration, the mechanical, fabrication, things of that nature, because that's what I did on James Webb, was actually building the satellite. So all very cool stuff. And I just feel it's my duty to go back and talk to different students about those experiences.
It's a wonderful platform that you have. You're doing some really incredible things. So because I went a little bit out of order here, I think I got to go back to Alyssa. So Alyssa, you're you're 3 years old and say, Dad, I want to go to Mars. And then, 19, you're in a Super Bowl commercial and you've been all over the place. You're inspiring children all over the world. You're inspiring plenty of adults too. And you got this dream to go to Mars and you're certainly working pretty hard on it. So tell us a little bit about this platform and how things like what happened when it first started happening. Was it immediate or was it something in particular that you found about creating this platform and it just went?
Yeah, totally. I mean, definitely when starting the whole, social media platform, there was honestly no intention of it kind of becoming a big thing or being important whatsoever. Honestly, me and my dad just kind of started posting stuff on social media, honestly, just to keep track of like pictures of things that we were doing, because obviously it was really awesome because I was pursuing stuff I was interested in, but also, I was being able to hang out with my dad. And so we were both just kind of just posting things to kind of keep track of it. And then all of a sudden people started following that, which was kind of pretty bizarre, but it has been really amazing to be able to communicate and inspire kids all over the world and have that ability to actually connect to them on a deeper level and, see so many kids who are actually interested in pursuing a space job or pursuing some sort of STEM career or space career, or even becoming astronauts as well. So it has been really amazing to kind of see all of that happen and actually being able to interact with them and really build up, more of a platform that is able to interact with everything. So honestly, I do think that I kind of benefited for the better in being able to just communicate with so many people all over the world. But yeah, honestly, from the beginning, it's always been weird that people were actually interested in the content. So.
And you've done such a wonderful job with getting it out there and inspiring so many people. And it's always cool. Every time I see there's a new magazine around, I'm like, oh, we were at Project Possum together, and we were the only two people still doing homework. There's the one of the oldest people there, and then there's her. And by the way, I was doing pre-calculus, and she was doing calculus-based physics. And I'm like, that's where I'm at in this right now. So it's a great memory.
Never too late.
It's been amazing to continue to see. I mean, is it Nike? You have there's a Nike or Reebok, and there's something with yoga, and there's a Super Bowl commercial. It's everything. It's nuts. Always stuff
happening. Always going.
So Karina, let's go to you. You do a whole lot with different programs. You work with a bunch of different organizations putting on events. And of course, you've been there and done that before, cosplaying and now as a science communicator. Were you able to kind of take the skills that you had from being around kind of the entertainment industry and utilize that? Was it a totally different animal? So for me as a DJ, a lot of this, it turned out transferred over. Did you find that, or was it just a whole new ball game?
So it happened kind of unintentionally. I was more just wanting to make initiatives and things for people to be interested. And I don't know where, I think because of all the cosplay and the entertainment in me, I just started to talk more and more and more. And next thing I knew, I was on panels. And next thing I knew, I was at South by Southwest representing industry. And it was a very easy transition because it was just talking about things that I'm passionate about. It was just I love comics, and now it's I love space. And there's the occasional times where they both mix, and the occasional time where I can say, oh, I love Star Trek, and here's how that relates to international relations. And then people can understand that. So it was actually super easy to translate a lot of what I learned from entertainment and from cosplay and from comic books. And also a lot of I will say the audiences do overlap. The audiences tend to be very passionate about things, and they tend to just care a lot. And I think everyone here would agree that their audiences tend to just be in love with the subject. And it's the same thing with any sort of comic or nerdy related thing. It's everyone just loves what they do. So when they see someone who's passionate about it, they just kind of gravitate towards it. And that's kind of how I ended up even being any sort of spokesperson for the organization that I work for, is just because I was the nerd who wouldn't shut up because I loved what I was doing.
And I love the way that you've been able to implement those things. And actually, I want to touch on some stuff that you do again real quick too, is putting events together, especially evening events. Like you've done, I know that you've done some cool stuff. I've not been able to make it to any of them yet. I'm normally, not sleeping, but I definitely want to go to on one of these days. So I definitely want to pick your brain about that. Putting stuff together for the space industry that is also cool and interesting. And really anybody would want to go to it. And I've seen a few of those that you've done. So whenever you're putting those things together, one is social, something that is a powerful thing for you, or you just know everybody and say you're going to be here because it's a cool thing.
I think honestly, like in any event, especially in this industry, is just put together the platform and people will come because, like I said, everyone just loves it. And so, for example, one thing that I did recently was more of an off-the-record conversation with young professionals, and then the Air and Space Museum like wanted to work with us, and then just things just happen and things kind of naturally. If you give people the "Hey, let's do this," they automatically say yes. Tell me when, because I love this. So, Ron, just stay awake a little longer.
Just sleep just a little less and you'll be fine. So Jake, let's go to you next. Yeah, yours is a different kind of platform than a lot of people are doing. And by the way, everybody is complimenting Raquel's plant that's in the background that is
Fake.
not real. It's like it's not real. It's a conspiracy. But no, we're everybody's cracking up, and we've got the private chat going on, and we're all kind of giggling about it because people are noticing that, and they're so impressed by the plant that's part of kind of like the set there. But Jake, let's talk a little bit about podcasting. It's a little bit different. It's not just sharing your own story. It's sharing other people's stories. How do you get started with it? And then two, how did you really start collecting the people that you speak to highlight our favorite subject here, Mars?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think everyone on this panel will probably understand this story, but it's a slow burn, right? You just start, and it's kind of, you build a network one person at a time. So in terms of logistics, it's pretty easy to start a podcast. You can just go buy a microphone at whatever, Best Buy or something, and log in your computer and you're good to go. You can just start talking. That's a podcast at its root, right? Early on, it was a lot of just cold calls. It was just like reaching out to people on Twitter. Twitter was fantastic for my early networking and still is today. You just, finding people that were, if they're on Twitter talking about their work, then they're already kind of interested in outreach. And so it's kind of a way you can find a good subset of the industry and they want to talk about their work. And so I just had some really kind people early on that took a chance on me and, agreed to be on a podcast that had 15 listeners or whatever it was early on. And then you just kind of go from there and you meet people and they introduce you to more people and then you're doing lots of cool stuff. So, this year I was able to interview the NASA administrator, which is a pretty good get for a podcast. And that's kind of how you do it. But like I said, it's one person at a time, right? You just kind of go, and it's been 5 years and here we are. So.
And that's something I kind of want to echo a little bit too, is that, some years ago when I was doing my first interviews that had a couple interviews, we've got like, I don't know, 1,000 people total watching this now between the stream and then also what's going into Big Marker, our friends that are over there that we love you all for being part of the Humans to Mars Summit. But Fraser Cain was like, just keep showing up. Eventually people are going to notice. I have my original interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson still only has like 150 views on it. So, I mean, even when you get big names, that's not going to be the only thing. You got to figure out all the stuff for YouTube. You got to figure out all the stuff for podcasts and SEO and all that stuff that makes you just want to scream into the black darkness. But as you start to figure these things out, they start to connect. And, I think that's one of the beautiful things about it is that you just keep showing up and eventually things happen. So don't think it's going to happen overnight. But if you love this and you have the passion like every one of the panelists here have tonight, you're going to find a way. You're going to find whatever it is that's your voice. So that's actually something I want to talk a little bit about is finding your voice and standing out from a crowd and kind of how you did that. So Diana, I'll go to you first. How did you do that? In particular, was it originally, hey, I want to do the Arabian Stargazer, it's going to be bilingual, I want to get to different people, or did it start out as something different?
Well, I did touch base on this a little bit earlier, that it was something new. We really didn't have someone who's talking about space and the space industry in Arabic, especially a young woman who is a recent immigrant to the States and got to work with all these cool companies. It has nothing to do with being really smart, because I wasn't really smart in school and still not, but consistency is really the key. So when I started the Arabian Stargazer, I saw that there was a gap. There's a gap in this big internet that we have. We have a bunch of really cool science communicators who are speaking different languages like English, Spanish, but we really didn't have that in Arabic. So the unique voice, I think, was was the key on why this kind of blew up really early on. And I hope it's continue reaching many more people. I don't think the number of followers you have is a metric of how successful you are. It is how many people you've really affected and the testimony that you get. If someone messages me and says, hey, your page really helped me, I am in Stanford right now, which I do mention this story in every single podcast or webcast I do, that is awesome. It really excites me that people are finding enough resources that they didn't necessarily have before, just because I am posting and sharing my story. So if you are, someone asked here on the comments, if you do have something that you want to share with the world and you want to use social media in sharing that knowledge and experiences and advice that you have, I do recommend that you find something unique about what you're trying to say. Is it going to be bilingually speaking? You're writing and writing everything, reading and writing everything in a different language? Or are you going to be doing, bringing more people in from the industry so more people are interested in speaking with these big names? It really depends on what's really not available and not out there, and you try to bring in your story with that unique method.
Sorry for that, but Alyssa just private messaged like me acting normal as if I'm not playing tug of war with my dog under the table, and I'm the only one that can see her. So I've noticed it the entire time, and I'm just cracking up. She's like, she told on herself, and I'm just sitting here, I'm just giggling every time I see it. I knew exactly. I saw you let the dog in, so I knew that you were going to be playing with the dog. So that one just cracks me up, and that makes me happy. So Athena, we're going to go to you next. International model, science communicator, put them together. And I love there's this kind of the mix of where it's like super glamour on the cover of Vogue or one of those amazing fashion magazines that a dude doesn't read. Probably learn some stuff, right? Might have better luck. But you decide to mix those things together, and then we see you on a TV show and your hair's up and you got the glasses on, like, whenever we're talking about black holes, and it's just these. It's the same side. It's two sides of the same coin. So how did you mix those together? What made you say I can do both? Because it's you, it's Carly Klaus. There's a few different people that are doing that, but you were the first, or one of the first, or possibly the first.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely vote for sure reading Vogue. I definitely think that's a great thing to do. I know lots of guys that read Vogue. But yeah, Carly Klaus, she is such an inspiration. She teaches girls how to code, which is awesome. And I don't know so much about any other like fashion models that are advocates for STEM. But for me, it started because while I was doing research at the Hayden Planetarium in protoplanetary disks, so early planet formations, and planetary system formations, is when I got scouted for America's Next Top Model and was like, maybe I should give this a shot. And, as I mentioned earlier, I've always been an artist. I decided maybe I can try to pursue both. And I didn't go forward with the show, but I decided to go full-fledged into the fashion industry. And I learned something quite magical, is that there's so many people in all these other industries that have a passion for science, that have a curiosity of just knowing what else is out there. I mean, it's kind of just an innate human ability, a human curiosity. And so that's when I decided that while like pursuing modeling overseas, whether it was in another country or it was in New York, I decided I want to start actually creating content around space again. But this time it's going to be in the makeup chair. It's going to be with a hairdresser. It's going to be on set. I'm going to stop the shoot to watch a rocket launch, which I did for the Ariane 5 launch, VA252, which was back in December, I believe. And it's extraordinary. And I think that that's what really kind of brought me to where I am today with, I saw a comment that came through from the audience that said it's about finding a niche from Steve Schwarmer. And that's so true. And, the thing is, I want to reach more people. And yeah, there's the comment. And the thing is, sometimes we're so focused, I think, on kind of that niche where science is a niche. But people who love science are always going to love science. It's about people that maybe aren't in the science industry that love science, but maybe were turned off to it at a young age because they didn't do good in class or whatever it is. And those are the people that I really think it's important to advocate space exploration to, and to share the message of space and science. And so that's really what kind of brought me to where I am today. And honestly, it's so epic. Like, I mean, just like, oh my gosh, it's just so awesome. Literally, like I said, being on set, and like, I'll just mention that I studied astrophysics, and I don't even have to talk the rest of the time. Everyone is boasting about how much they love galaxy collisions, and they watch Cosmos and like all this other stuff. And I'm like, wow, like
Cosmos,
these are other
what's that?
models. This is a photographer. Right? What's Cosmos? But you know, and so it's quite extraordinary, because you really start to see, I think, that that connectivity of humanity and kind of our collective. And so that's what really brought me into doing what I do today. So whether it is sharing, you know, a modeling photo from New York Fashion Week, or it's like, actually New York Fashion Week had Sophia Artificial Intelligence, Sophia the AI. Yeah. She was a model during a show, which was really awesome. And I got to meet her, and I broke down crying, but it was so awesome. And Cosmos is the show you drink. I just saw that in a private chat. Yeah, or Cosmos, like the show that started by Carl Sagan and then hosted by Neil deGrasse Tyson. So yeah, there's just so many other industries out there, I think, that are just so intertwined with science.
And so while we're on it, one of the cool things you've been doing recently, and for those that maybe don't know about it, a lot of people have seen the live streams that SpaceX does for launches, but you work with Ariane, and it's a talk show for launches. It is like the coolest looking thing ever. I know that you all had to suspend it for now, but you, Sarah Crudis, and a group of other incredible science communicators, journalists, and congratulations, Sarah, if you're watching, saw that the new book's out. But it's super cool to do that. So you kind of get to be the person out in the field sometimes, and then sometimes you're sitting on it. They're talking to DJs and about music. It's a show. It's not just, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong at all with what SpaceX does. It just seems like it's just a whole different production level, and it's awesome. So how did you get involved with that? And can you tell us a little bit of the behind the scenes of this really cool thing that Ariane doing? There we go.
Yeah. Wait, there we go. Okay. Yeah, the final countdown, a show started by Ariane Group, and it exactly what you said. It was about bringing in artists, musicians, and also, of course, scientists, people that are working on, you know, the journey of building a moon base, building a Mars base, but then also those who are creating music around space, or other things. And so, yeah, the final countdown, it's just super awesome. And it actually started through just an email that I got. I got this email, it was from a French production company. And I was like, whoa, like this is about to be, you know, the adventure of a lifetime. And, you know, obviously with COVID, a lot of things were put on hold. But, you know, it definitely is still something so exciting that I think a lot of live streams are going to start doing more of. So like space agencies, space companies that are doing launches, I really hope they start doing more shows like this where it's open table. You know, it's an open discussion. It's round table. You're all sitting around kind of just like, you know, chatting about the amazingness that goes into a launch, speaking about the technical terms, but also going into, you know, maybe a rabbit hole or a tangent here and there. That's kind of the philosophy that, you know, branched into astronomy. So that's what I love so much about a show. But so many times it just comes in through an email, and it was like super awesome, which is why I think it's so important to just remain open and constantly just be connected to each other.
It's wonderful points. And so Raquel, want to go to you for this, a little bit about this platform that you made and what you do and how you share, because there's certain people that kind of share the space stuff and then they share their family stuff. Like Emily Calandrelli has two separate platforms. She's the space mom and she's the space gal. The space gal is much more around, you know, the science communication and her new Netflix show and those things. And then space mom's a little bit more of like her and her husband and her baby, and they're just being cute and adorable, but you mix them together. It might be, you guys should go check out this really super awesome science communicator. And then it's the baby and you're like, oh, and it's a cool mix that you mix the two things together. So can you tell us a little bit about, mixing the two, sharing your personal life at the same time that you're also sharing science communication?
Honestly, I'm just not organized enough to have different accounts. I actually do have a separate baby account, but I stopped posting. It was just for family and friends, and I couldn't even keep that up. So, but I'm a mom and I'm a scientist. Like that is just who I am, and so to me, it just feels natural to share both both worlds and all the worlds. You know, there's lots of different things that I think I am. You know, I'm not from this country. I'm from Portugal, so I like talking about being from Portugal, and I'm a veteran. I like talking about my experience in the military. So that's all part of who I am, and I have no problem with sharing it all just in one platform. But I completely understand people wanting to separate their personal and their professional lives. I just don't do it because I'm not organized enough to do that.
Well, it's not like you have a whole lot of extra time being both.
That's
you know,
true.
So
That's also true. Yeah, my time is so taken up by so many things that this is just one thing. It's just one account that I can post to, and I don't have to think about it.
So Alyssa, we'll go to you. As great as everybody here does, we are all jealous of your engagement rate. It is like you will post a picture and 60% of the people that follow you will have 115,000 remarks. It's just being like, I passed a test today, you know, and like people love everything that you're doing. And I know that it's really just a lot of work between you and your dad. It's not like you're looking at the numbers. It's not like you're pouring over stuff, not ever sleeping. It must be nice, by the way, because that's not the way it works for me. But no, it's when did you start seeing people really connecting to what it was you were doing? Was there anything special about it, or was it just the snowball kind of like we talked about a little bit earlier?
Yeah, you know, I wish I kind of like could remember, I guess, a time, I guess, where it like blew up or like exploded. I think that there's just been, it mainly just like came in waves, kind of just throughout everything that I was doing. So like something would like come out, like maybe just like a simple article, and there'd be a huge wave of things, and then like you know, something else would happen, and there'd be another wave of like.
Did we just hear a puppy?
Yeah, he's scratching at the door. But basically everything that I did was like a wave of people, and it's so crazy because like I remember first starting Instagram and having like 100 followers, and like I knew those 100 followers like by name, even though like I didn't know them like personally. I knew like, oh yeah, add whoever like follows me, even if they had, you know, 15 followers. I just knew who was following me, and so it was just so crazy when things just started coming in like bigger waves, and that's where thing as to like what it's built now. But I totally agree. I really don't understand some of the engagement stuff sometimes. I mean, honestly, I'm not like a social media guru or anything like that. So for me, it was just kind of me posting what I was interested in. You know, I never really felt like I didn't want to have to post. I didn't want to feel obligated to post on Instagram or like post on social media just in general. I just kind of posted when things are happening. I never really wanted to like make up a post just to have something. So I guess it's worked pretty much. Just kind of been rolling with it. It's kind of just like the same platform to me as like when it was those 100 people just posting whatever I'm interested in or whatever's going on, just to hopefully show people what they can do or other things that are out there or other opportunities or even inspiring others.
And I think that's a major point that everybody here has this, you know, kind of in their bones. And it's with a lot of the best science communicators is that it's the passion and it's the authenticity of it. You know, of course, there's going to be the magazine covers and the other cool stuff, but it's also the thing that people are just as excited when like they heard you graduating or when they heard that, you know, Athena was going to be on this show or that Raquel just had the baby or, you know, all the amazing stuff that Diana does and so on. That's the real piece of it. Find whatever is that authentic piece of you. And if you share that, if you're willing to share that, and that's not easy, and I'm sure everybody here can talk about that, that's something to kind of pay attention to and make sure that you continue to highlight yourself and what it is and what you're passionate about, and you're going to find kind of your way. So Karina, I'll go to you next with, as you work with these different organizations, you know, what is it that jumps out about, you know, the things that you work on, what you put out there and how it connects with people and, maybe some tips and tricks of what some people, that are listening can do to kind of get their platform off the ground. You are muted.
First step, make sure you're unmuted. But I think the best thing about what I've noticed, even with partnering with people who are not in the space industry, is similar to what Athena mentioned earlier. It's just that they already have a passion for something. And one of the best things about space is that people's passions have a space in space, you can always find whatever it is that people are doing in the space industry. So sometimes they might not even realize, like, because of the cosplay and the entertainment industry, I have a lot of friends who are actually seamstresses. And recently, SpaceX opened up a position for an astronaut seamstress. So I was like, hey guys, look at this. You can work in the space industry. And also working with different organizations is just trying to show people that they do have a space in this industry, that they do belong here, and trying to figure out how to make it easily accessible and make sure that they know that they can have their way in here. And honestly, like, what everyone has done in this panel is exactly what needs to be done, is just sharing their passion, because ultimately it shows people that they can do it too. So for me, like, I didn't come into industry wanting to be on panels or anything like that. I just wanted to work on something that I was passionate about. But because I talked about that passion, I started to get invited to do these type of stuff. And for me, it was just incredible. And the main reason why I kept doing it was not so much because of me, but because I knew that there's not a lot of people that look like me in this industry. So by me being able to just put myself out there, even if it was a little bit different or a little bit weird for me, it allowed somebody else to see themselves in industry. And I think even with like Athena, there's a lot of the times people think that if you're attractive, you can't be smart. And, you're just proving everyone wrong. You're just telling them, look, I can do both. And just being able to be online and represent who you are actually just really helps everyone be able to see themselves in industry. And so just share your passion, and you never know who you're going to reach, because they might not have seen themselves until they saw you.
I think that's a great point. And I don't know where it came from that you can't be, you can't have a look, and you can't also be, you can't be smart. You can't be the other one. Hedy Lamarr, anybody? Like, I can't go over the list of things that she was amazing at, right? I mean, like, she's what? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. In fact, it's something I get all the time. People will be like, and this is men and women, and everybody's like, there's some really attractive people in the space industry. Yes, of course there is. Like, no, it's not what you see on TV. Like, there's some mixtures of anything and everybody from all backgrounds, of all sexualities, all colors, all creeds. And that's one of the reasons that I really do love space Twitter, is you'll see the hashtag of, this is what a scientist looks like. Or, recently we've seen like Black in STEM, LGBT in STEM, disabled in STEM. And we get all these different voices that we get to see and listen to now. And we're getting to see that it has always been like that, and not what TV and movies showed you. Shock and awe, don't trust the TV and movies. They're lying to you. Jake, we'll go to you as you're developing a podcast and you start to get it out there, and the pieces that you put out, and what makes it a special thing. One, why did you choose Mars to talk about? Like, it's obvious you've got an interest in pretty much everything space, and for the people that are watching this, Humans to Mars Summit. So what made you decide to go there? And then how did you kind of craft and put this thing together? That is, obviously doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's so there's like an inspiring answer to that question and a less inspiring one. I'll give you both. So the inspiring one is I think Mars is just it's a compelling place. I mean, if you go back to ancient Mars history, go back 3.5-4 billion years, maybe Mars didn't look that different from Earth, and then something happened, something changed, and Earth became this lovely, paradise of water and plants and life, and Mars became this cold, arid, red rock. And I think the story of, there's almost like it's like a drama to it, like what went wrong, right? So I think that's just a really interesting kind of thing to talk about. And so that's why I like to cover a lot of, planetary geology and geomorphology and geophysics, all these kind of cool things that the way we can measure this planet and understand what's happening there. I think it's just a fun story. The less inspiring answer is that I didn't see any other Mars podcasts, and so I thought it was a competitive niche that I could get into. So, it's a little bit of the myself passion, and a little bit of seeing an opportunity of where I could actually do something interesting. So, yeah, that's probably the answer for you.
Well, I mean, at least you were being honest. That's what's important. Kenny, some stuff I want to pick your brain about as soon as I call. Everybody get your mask. I'm just kidding. I'm fine.
Thank God we're virtual.
I got Kitty though. Kitty's like, I gotta say something in a minute. You just crack me up. So Kitty, with your platform, what you've been doing more and more of, and I know this is true with a lot of you that are on the panel right now, is standing on stages, talking in front of people. Were you already doing that when your social media platform was taking off, or because of that, is that one of the reasons, or was it just kind of happened simultaneously, concurrently, whatever?
So let me tell you, I'm not going to give you the long story, but I have terrible stage fright. Like, I hate talking in front of large groups of people. So I really honestly don't know how I got to start speaking on larger stages. I think it's because of my personality of not wanting to back down from a challenge. So one day, someone said, "Hey, I need you to speak to this auditorium full of students," and I was like, "Sure," because their speaker had backed out. It was a longer story, but short story is their speaker backed out, and I was just like, "Yeah, sure." And I got up there, and it was absolutely amazing. The teacher students came up to me afterwards just with a ton of questions, and I felt like I really, really made a great impact doing that. So that's something that I kind of started doing after I developed the platform, after I stepped out of that just being an engineer, just kind of going to work every day, and thus using my story as a platform to reach others. Again, I feel like it's selfish to not reach back or reach forward in some way and encourage, inspire the next generation in that regard. So to answer your top level question, no, I was terrible at speaking, and it was a skill that developed. And I'm blessed. I'm happy to have it now, but it didn't start like this.
And you're doing wonderful, man. Your platform's incredible, and people will always laugh when I tell them that at one point I was terrified of public speaking, and I was terrified of flying, and now I do this all the time. And we did micro G flights, me, Alyssa, Shauna Pena, who was Dr. Shauna Pena that was on earlier. So to go from, I'm talking about the least little bit of just turbulence, and I'm like freaking out, right? Fat guy with a heart attack in the back. Somebody at the doctor. Is a doctor on the plane? So going from that to like the parabolas and all the crazy stuff that we do to test with Project Possum, these incredible suits created by Final Frontier Design, which I know a few of you have probably, Athena, I know for sure has worn one at one point, right?
Yeah, because they're located in Brooklyn.
Yeah, they're right around the corner. And
they're like,
so that's a thing to remember too, that you all have the ability to, people that are listening at home that are interested, with practice, you'll find a way. Mine was vodka. So that definitely helped with my stage fright for the first few years. I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm just saying, if we're being honest. So I think that there's certain things that help. Hey, we do Drinks with Explore Mars. If you've never seen it, it's a free show, and we all drink and talk about science with astronauts and stuff. So it's pretty cool. But I think what we have in this is that everybody's kind of found their way. But so what I want to do next is talk about challenges. What was the biggest challenge for you in creating your platform? And Deanna, I'll go to you first.
I mean, it's a current challenge actually, is staying consistent, because a lot of us are actually volunteering their time to maintain these platforms. It's probably something that we're doing on the side. This is what I do. The Arabian Stargazer is just a hobby that I do at night or on a weekend. So it's really demanding to keep it successful and to keep it going. And especially with social media and how algorithms work on Instagram, when you're not posting and when you're not engaging and answering comments and answering emails, you do lose interest. And your main goal is to reach as many people as possible. So staying consistent and continuing that creativity cycle is something that I do struggle on. When I am stressed, I am not thinking of the page. I am trying to meet deadlines. I'm trying to just maintain my job. So this is just a common issue that a lot of science communicators face, especially when they're volunteering their time to maintain that platform or to help others.
It would help if I decided to unmute myself. So Athena, we'll go to you next. What's the biggest challenge for you that you had to deal with in the platform, or even the biggest issue that you deal with now that you have a big platform? To kind of keep it going and keep the motivation up.
The biggest challenge was the beginning, actually starting it, because I was using like an iPad mini, which was like from, I don't even know what year. And my first YouTube video was on centripetal acceleration. And I just knew I wanted to try and do the demo that my professor did in college. And it just kept failing and failing and failing. And I just thought, why am I even doing this? This is so like silly. And I was like, I should just stick to modeling. Like no one wants to listen to me talk about space. But I just was so passionate about it that I just was like, I don't care if this iPad keeps dying and falling over. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it into my first video. And that was definitely the biggest challenge, was just pushing myself to actually produce the first kind of video. So yeah, that's my answer.
It's a great and wonderful answer, so we appreciate it. Raquel, is there one for you? Well, you've already said motivation to separate them, so that might be number one. If that's number one, then give us another.
Yeah, no, it's well, not just the separating part of it, but like I'm sure a lot of the other panelists is when life gets, because I do this on the side. This is a side gig. It's not my full-time job or anything, and probably not a lot of us here. Is some, like when I was pregnant and when the pandemic happened and my kids' daycare shut down and I was still working on my PhD, I did not have time to post on my social media. Social media was like in the bottom of my to-do list. But then you feel guilty, your friends, I've become friends with a lot of my followers and we chat every day, and I would feel guilty about not posting, like, oh my goodness. And then I'm getting messages from people being like, hey, are you okay? And so I feel like I'm accountable to this amazing group of friends that I have on my platform. And then when I can't be there, I feel very guilty about it. So that's the most challenging thing for me is sometimes I just cannot post and I cannot be there for my followers. And then I feel guilty about it.
And, they do kind of become your family, especially the ones that are really connected to you. And we'll get to that in a minute, of that connection with a person that you met through this and somehow you inspired, and then they're doing awesome things and it makes you cry yourself to sleep at night. Like, how did I do this? So we'll definitely talk about that in a minute. But Alyssa, let's go to you for this one. What's your biggest one? You're just, in college and, also running social media stuff and all the other things that you do. No big deal. Super Bowl commercial, homework and wait, yo.
Yeah, I mean, totally kind of like what Raquel said. I mean, none of us, obviously kind of all of us have other obligations, and social media isn't like our full-time gig or anything. And so it's definitely the same
except
thing.
For me.
Kind of just in time management and yeah, except for you. But for the most part, I mean, really it is just kind of whenever we have time for it. I mean, honestly, social media is a full-time gig. If you are running, every social media platform, if you are running a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, I mean, it's kind of endless now with the amount of platforms that there are. And if you are on all of them, it can definitely get overwhelming in just the amount of stuff to go through and actually post and do. So, for me, definitely time management has always been, I guess, in general, just the biggest challenge because of all the stuff that I want to do, as well as keeping track on school and homework and just kind of doing everything, having time for Netflix, got to balance everything out. So in general, I guess just time management and kind of bringing social media into that same realm of kind of having time for it, or either, engaging with followers, responding to direct messages or answering comments or anything like that, and trying to balance and have time for all that as well, because, it is important to engage and try to actually do what I'm trying to do, which is inspire people and like teach them and help them in any way that I can, but also having time to, do everything that I actually have to do to reach my own goals at the same time. So it's all just kind of
that's why you wrote a book. I love that. People ask, like, what did you do to do this? Buy the book. Like, I can only answer this 114 times a day. Did you do a thing? I did a thing. It's in the book. Read the book. So, that was a really smart move on your part. It's like, I'm going to take a bunch of time to write a book because it's going to save me time in the future. So, Karina, we'll go to you next. Biggest challenge that you have to deal with, maybe mixing work and planning and all the things that you have to do, and then also, just being a great science communicator.
The time. So sometimes you get, especially for me, I get so caught up on trying to make partnerships and make things, and in your head you're thinking about like all the cool things you can post online, but then you actually have to execute them. So that's kind of the hardest part. It's like, especially recently with like the partnership we had with Kerbal Space Program, I wanted to get on the game and do all these things and share them, but I had to focus on actually getting the rules for the kids and getting them to submit their things on time and getting and answering all the questions on what they were doing and what they needed to do. And so sometimes it's just kind of hard when you have to execute everything and then realize you have no time to actually post anything. And same with a calendar I recently worked on, which is, I'll use this to plug it too. It's a STEM calendar for the year 2020, 2021 for young kids and for teachers to be able to find diverse people in the industry. And it was such a fun project to work with. And as I was finding the people to include in the calendar, I just kept thinking, oh my God, this is so much content. But because I had to do all that content, I didn't have enough time to think, oh, maybe I should make these posts. So it's that execution of partnerships and plans and thinking about everything you can do and then not having the time to actually put it up.
Oh yeah, that's the things that I forget to do or post. Like, oh, I'm gonna do a thing about the thing, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that because 8 other things happen. Time management is a nightmare for so many people here, and I love everybody saying I'm reposting. I know you're reposting. I'm kidding. I see that as soon as you post, I see the notifications on my phone. Of course, I'm kidding. I was giving everybody a little bit of hell there because they were all on their phones, but they were posting, and I knew that they were. But everybody's like, no, I'm not. I'm just reposting. I know you are. I'm kidding. So, Jake, other than the nightmare that can be editing and getting things together, is that your biggest challenge that you have? Because I know that can take forever. If you've got a great mic, they don't, and it's all over the place. Somebody was yelling at me in Reddit the other day because generally my microphone is, and also I have a voice, right? And I interview somebody and the volume's off, and it takes too long for me to fix all that stuff, and I just get frustrated and put it out there. So, in particular, is that something, a big one for you with all this, or is there something else that really kind of stands out?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into kind of, behind the scenes on a podcast. And I think this panel is about social media. And I think that the point that I can make there is that I find it really challenging to to do the right balance between the content that I came here to make. And so that's, these are podcasts, these are longer form streams and video productions and all those kinds of things. So I got to put time into building good content, but then you need to use social media as a tool to get people to it. And so whereas, a different strategy might be the social media is your content and you can do it all kind of at once. And so I find that very, very challenging to be like, okay, well, I've busted my butt and I've made this amazing thing that took me 12 hours to put together, and then not marketing it properly, which is like, it's so hard sometimes. I used to have someone mentioned that, keeping up all these different platforms. I think Alyssa said, there's so many platforms you can get onto, and I ran out of time for that. So I used to try and do Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and I was not putting my all into it. And so I actually ended up cutting a few of those just to focus and say, this is what, I can do a good job and put the time in there. But it's definitely a challenge, even on Twitter. I mean, just trying to think of ways to, put something interesting and unique out there that isn't just like retweets and likes and just like engaging really kind of, half-assed with it for lack of a better word. So that's what I really find challenging, is just like, is the right balance of putting the right time into social media where it's adding value and not taking value away.
Wow. I mean, that is an excellent point. I mean, how many of us, lose time on social media? I mean, and that's it too. I have to go to social media to put something up, and then I notice that there's 400 things that are going on, and then I lose track, and I have to go back to the list of things. I'm like, oh, I was supposed to do that like 3 things ago. That's where I started chasing rabbits, as I call it. So, I think that's a big one for a lot of people, is finding that balance between the two, where it's a benefit and it's helping you building your business, building your brand, and then also just being like, oh my God, cat videos, so awesome. So I think that's a big one for all of us, right? So Kenny, we'll go to you next. What's your biggest one that you have to deal with?
You're gonna make me vent.
Go for it, man.
So I'll say that social media is way at the bottom of my list of things to do. Like you said, I've got a little one on the way. We're at what, 38 weeks right now, so it could happen now. I could run off this camera now and hit the hospital, but that's happening any day now. I'm running for public office. I am a doctoral student. I work at Goddard. Again, I support 3 missions there. So, once a week we're going into the office to find out something else has slipped to the right. And it's difficult to thank you. It's difficult to keep up with all these things. But again, I feel like at some level, it's kind of my responsibility to, again, put those things out into the atmosphere to say, hey, I'm working on these cool projects. Hey, I'm trying to impact you in some way. And then, I've got mentees and XYZ. So my challenge, again, is time management, is really deciding what I'm going to tackle each and every day. And it changes. It changes every day. It changes every week based on how much homework you have, based on what the office is well, not the office right now, but I guess what my inbox looks like, and then supporting conferences and things like that, and talking to great people like you guys. So it varies, but I'll say time management is probably the biggest thing for me.
And I appreciate you being honest with it. And so the funny thing is that we were actually planning on having a baby shower for Raquel at H2M. So earlier this year, we were going to do like a big thing for it, and then the world ended. So we actually, and Wade, sorry, I forgot about this. We owe you an Explore Mars birthday, not birthday, but baby gift, and we'll send that to you. So message me and tell me what it is you need. And now, Kenny, we got to get you one too, man. So maybe I'll just buy the same thing, or I can send one to Raquel. She can say I don't need this, and she can re-gift it. You might end up with 2 things, bro.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm completely fine with that. Before we get to the audience questions, there's one thing that I definitely want to talk about a little bit. And it's what's next. You've built these big platforms and everything. How do we keep scaling up? I mean, I interviewed Elon Musk today. I have other than going to space, I don't know how I top that after that in this. This is the biggest stream I've ever done. We have almost 700 people watching on the live stream. And then there's the people that are watching in the event. So there's so much going on. And then Elon earlier, and I'm pretty sure we just got confirmation that Bill Nye is coming on tomorrow. So me and Jen and Ivy and I are going to interview him together. They just said that we could promote it. So that's the first announcement here, right around the time that we hit 700 viewers. So, I mean, what do you do once you get to a point like I've got 107,000 followers like Diana does? What do you do? What's the next thing? What is it that keeps you going? What's the next big goal for you?
Yeah, I think if you do start at the mentality that I want to get followers, then maybe you will reach that pretty fast and you realize that your dream wasn't big enough and you need to go scale up and get bigger. So my main goal, I actually did not know it's going to get big. And I do believe that it could get bigger if I can be a little bit more consistent. But my main goal is to utilize social media to kind of upscale these resources everywhere around the world. A lot of us are speaking English, and many people probably are watching and not understanding what we're saying. I want to have these events in Arabic as well. I want to have the skill sets that I learned in an American university in the Middle East as well. I want to shed light on the scientific initiatives that are already happening on the ground in the Middle East, but provide them with more exposure. And that will not happen unless we utilize social media and show and connect the general public on why should we invest in space and how is it important and how could we have businesses, private companies, the government, universities, middle schools, everyone to participate in making this a reality. Because let's be honest, space is not cheap. It's not easy. It's not something where you can Google how to build a rocket and there's a perfect recipe on how to do that. When I was in university, I built a cubic satellite with NASA. I participated in building 3D printed rocket engines, and that was all on a university level. I was still 20, I think 19, 20, and I couldn't do that on my own. My group couldn't do that on their own. We needed help from industry professionals, and these industry professionals will not be able to help us unless they saw value and they saw that we have some kind of support and funding from whatever organizations we were in. So my main goal is to kind of spread that idea that we do need space and that you could pursue space from anywhere in the world. You don't have to be really good in math. You don't have to speak English for it. You don't have to work at NASA to be an astronaut. There's so many different avenues. Oh, and most importantly, you don't even have to be a scientific person. You don't have to be a scientist or an engineer. You can work anything, an artist, photographer, accountant, whatever major you're interested in, you can still be part of the space. As Karina said, you can create space in space. So my main goal is to build that big platform so everyone can see it and everyone can understand it and utilize it in wherever they're from.
A wonderful breakdown there for us of what's next for you. Athena, will go to you. TikTok. You're the U.S. company that buys TikTok. What do you do next? I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, kind of you're killing it right now. How do you continue to scale up? What's next for you? What's the big dream?
Yeah, well, your earlier question, which was what motivates me to keep going or what motivates us to keep going. For me, I feel like the space industry is one of those industries that's ever expanding. And so I feel like every single day I'm in awe all over again when I open my inbox and see emails of like newsletters from science like websites that are talking about new discoveries that were made, like a new binary star system that was discovered, like orbiting close to a black hole. And that stuff is just so exciting. And I feel like it'll just never get old. It's just so extraordinary. So there's always stuff to share, I feel. But as I've been evolving, I think just like through my platform, I've gained such a passion in education and in like just the education industry in general, just because that's something that, especially right now with COVID, that we're really seeing, students struggling so much, especially like younger students, grade school and high school. And I have a little sister who's 16, and just like seeing how she has to do school now, like half virtually and then half in school. It's really kind of jolted me and been like, I gotta like really start to work harder on what I'm doing because, virtual learning is so prominent now more than ever. And I almost feel like we as science communicators have a very big responsibility to bring that to the youth. And on top of that, to start to actually change these like systematic things that have been built within our world from the school system. And I think that that's something that's really just become such a huge passion of mine. And to branch off of what Diana was saying about kind of like, getting eventually a ripple effect into like funding bigger missions and actually speaking to policies and speaking to all like big audiences. What really kind of like woke me up was when I did, it was like the Blitz at Washington, D.C. through the Planetary Society, where you speak to Congress about the new NASA bill, so the NASA Transition Authorization Act. So talking about new missions that should be funded. And that really kind of like woke me up of how important it is that the general public knows about how much their lives are affected by different scientific missions worldwide, whether it's through ISRO, the Indian Space Agency, JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, ESA, European Space Agency, NASA, all of those. And I think that the more we can properly educate people, the more we're going to be able to see a greater advancement and hopefully start to actually, see that ripple effect of starting to resolve the world issues that we're facing right now, because a lot of that comes through these ideas or these technologies or the ways that we work together as humanity. And so I see that so much just that have come through the history of going to space and working in the science industry. So I think that alone is enough of a motivation. But yeah, my biggest dream and goal is just to like really start to shift the way we do education.
Beautiful things. Absolutely beautiful things. So Raquel, raising children and getting your so this is pretty easy. PhD, I know it's kind of scary, and we talked about it the other day. So talk a little bit about raising kids, getting a PhD, and still being a science communicator.
It's I like to keep busy, I guess. It's definitely been challenging. I keep having babies, so my PhD keeps getting delayed and delayed. I had a meeting with my advisor a couple of weeks ago. He's like, "You got to get out of here. So he wants me to finish by June. So So what I'm working on now is trying to figure out what I want to do next. Once I do finish my PhD, do I want to go into academia? Do I want to go into research? Do I want to go into science communication? The one thing that I went to community college, and I had an internship at NASA, JPL, while at community college. And that was community college teachers and professors were some of the most caring, impactful people in my career and where I'm at right now. And I would love to do that, to give back to that community. I would love to teach at community college at some point. But I also really love being involved in NASA missions. So ideally for me in the future, I would like a job where I can teach in community college to give back to that community that I was a part of that helped me so much, but also continue working with NASA, sending spacecraft to other worlds and figuring out what's out there. But yes, and while raising children. But it's really exciting. The other day, I asked my son, he's 4 years old, do you want to be a scientist? And he's like, no, mommy, only girls are scientists. Because in our household, I'm the scientist and my husband's the science communicator. So he makes films. So my son said that he wants to make films with daddy because only girls are scientists. And I thought that was really, really interesting. So yeah, getting to experience, my excitement for the world with them is actually one of my biggest joys in the world.
And your husband absolutely has never made a great video with millions of views before. So I wonder why. I was like, Daddy, that's the coolest thing ever. So I mean, I know that's got to be an incredible piece of like putting all those pieces together. And what a wonderful household to grow up in with a loving family that also has a lot of talent and can kind of share that. So Alyssa, let's go to you next. What's space, Mars. Just
Yeah, well, I guess especially for me, I don't necessarily have a job given that I'm still a student and that sort of thing. So there's a whole lot, coming up, just in general in my lifetime. Graduating college would be a pretty big milestone. Actually gain a job working in the space industry, doing astrobiology and getting involved in what I'm studying. And so all of that obviously is super exciting, and with the hopes of going into the space industry and everything that I'm looking forward to getting into, it's also important, that I think that I continue to inspire other kids, whether they're my age or younger. It takes tens of thousands of people to send one person into space, and there are just so many incredible roles in the space industry just in general. Whether that is the astronauts, the engineers, or the people packaging the food to go up to the actual space station, or any other role that there is, we have to inspire those kids now to continue supplying those jobs, to continue sending people to space, going back to the moon, going on to Mars, and all of our future ambitions. So really for me, I guess continuing in my next steps is just continuing through my education and all that fun stuff, but really just continuing to get more kids, girls, whoever kind of involved in space and wanting to pursue those space careers. And I guess also getting younger kids to realize that they can pursue a sort of job in space. There's other opportunities out there that they can look into besides, I feel like when we're younger, we kind of focus on those typical, I guess, like doctor, lawyer, kind of typical jobs that we're told, where there is, like psychology that is included within the space program, or, all these kind of out there jobs that there are so many opportunities, especially with space, because it's constantly evolving. So just having that be known and continuing to see that rise of interest. Also, I guess, just in general on social media, space and NASA being popular again, Mars becoming popular, and all like the TV shows and movies. So in general, just all the exciting stuff happening with space becoming big again.
Love it, love it. Karina, get off your phone. It's time for you to answer. That's right. I caught you in the act, girl. I got to text my boyfriend. He's amazing. It's on the other side of the world. So tell us what it is that's next for you, other than getting back to him someday. Hey, guess what? You're muted again. If
Thanks,
you were
Ron.
texting, see, you've been giving me thumbs up, and you know that I hate it in my messages all the time. So this is my piece to get you back in front of the world. The 857 people watching right now.
Oh, okay. Just you wait for the rest of the week then. By the way, I do behave like Ron's like annoying little sister by just bugging him like whenever I can.
Eat water.
So outside of that, as my goal. But outside of, bugging Ron as my goal, one of my biggest goals that I want to do is actually create and foster the workforce for the industry. We've been having a real struggle with workforce, and especially when it comes to diverse workforce. And we really can't have that as demographics are changing, as the future of the country will look different. We really need to change our tactics and ensuring that more people will join our industry. So I really want to focus on diversifying the workforce and growing that, especially getting younger people interested. And I hope to do that through different ways of, kind of using bait, things like a video game or science fiction, just to get them involved, because we really need them and we really need the diversity. The number of women the percentage of women hasn't really changed in the last 30 years. So we really, really, really need to focus. And I think for me, one of my goals is to really try to foster that workforce and to ensure that, we do have a future, and that when we move humanity forward, that we actually reflect humanity, and that the group that takes us forward reflects everyone. So really what I want to do is utilize a lot of pop culture and social media to help foster that future workforce.
Wonderful stuff. Jake, we'll go to you next, sir. What's the big thing taking over the world? Taking it with the podcast? Is the podcast what does it, or is there another thing, another iron in the fire? I'm sure you're up to something.
Yeah, I'm always up to something for sure. But I think the top level story is just I want to tell stories. I think that's the most compelling part of this work for me. It's what gets me leaping out of bed. I love, I love humanizing what's going on in space. I think there's there's a lot of enthusiasm around really technical details around stuff. You can go on Twitter and see people just geek out about the type of metal being used on the side of a rocket, and they want to talk about that for ages, and that's totally cool. Yeah, it's totally cool, and I love that enthusiasm, and I think that's an awesome thing to be excited about. I'm excited about it too. I definitely engage in some of those conversations, but to me, I just love turning something like that passion into a human story, because at the end of every bolt on one of these rockets is as someone who turned it with a tool, and they went home to their family and they have a life, and there's something really interesting going on behind there. I'm really glad Karina and some others on this panel have brought up the idea of diversity. I think that's an important thing, part of the story to tell. And I have to give props to Explore Mars. They've done a really good job of putting a lot of effort into having good representation in this panel. I'm delighted and actually a little bit surprised I'm the only white guy on this panel, and I think that's just amazing that we're able to get some different voices and put those forward. I try really hard to share some of those stories through the podcast and put some different perspectives and voices, and I want to keep chasing that, because I can always be better. That's not a job that you finish doing, trying to diversify that kind of stuff. So I think that's what's really in the future. I think that's it's going to fill up my time plenty to do. So that's where I'm really going after.
Love it. And, so that's been an interesting conversation throughout this whole spring of people talking about diversifying and doing all this stuff. I'm like, you need to go to more conferences. You're not meeting enough people. Everybody I met, I didn't meet any of you really on social media other than Jake, a friend, recommended the show to me, and then Kenny a week ago. Everybody else I've met at different events or on panels with them, and the space industry and the conferences are just filled with diversity, and you just never know when you're going to meet the next person. So for me to go through and be like, I'm going to pick 5 random people for a show, I didn't really think about it too much. But I go back and look through it, and it's awesome that there is that much diversity in the space industry already. It's going to be difficult for you to continue to do all white male panels, space industry. So it's one of those things, continue to work hard on it. And I think it's a really cool thing. So, Kenny, I saw you laughing there, but we'll go to you next.
So that's kind of a tough question for me. Within my own personal goals, I'd say I want to just continue to work on these different missions I've been working on. I really want to kind of make that shift to more manned mission, more of the as everyone might know, Goddard is really more of like a science center, research center. So I've done a lot of stuff with hands-on integration and things like that, but I really do want to get more into those manned missions and things like that. I know it's a lot of people's goal or dream of working at NASA and hopefully one day becoming an astronaut at some point. That's kind of on my trajectory. It's not goal A, but it's along there somewhere. But really, at the bottom line, I really just hope to influence and inspire the next generation. I'm going last, but I gotta bring up the diversity concept as well. We need to push the envelope on that. Me growing up, I didn't have a ton of people that look like me in really high positions in the STEM field. And so as I was developing my platform, I thought I need to be that person. I need to, try to be that influencer and be, just that voice within STEM. So, my goals hopefully are to impact the next generation. And that's why I do the things I do every day.
Kenny, you're getting yelled at for saying manned missions and not crewed missions.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, see, he's like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to. My bad.
I'm sorry, guys.
I got a baby on the way. I'm not sleeping.
I'm sorry.
This is one of those things where we keep ourselves honest, right? It's something that I have had to catch myself before, or learning the pronouns of my friends and making sure that I get that right in my head. It still takes me a minute to do that. There's a lot of these things that we're all still learning and we're all still growing. And the best part was he's like, I don't care. He was like, you're right. I did.
I was like, you're right. I can accept when I'm wrong. I can accept when I'm wrong. I apologize.
I'm saying the work is never done, right? You got
exactly right.
Exactly.
So we're going to do one more question here to wrap up before we go to everybody for their final thoughts and where we find social media. And this is from Jupiter Jones. She says, question for everyone. How can we as science communicators and your audience help advance the cause, science education, and the industry of science communication? So we'll go to you first, to Diana.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I believe everybody on here is bringing a unique perspective from their specific viewpoint. Like, I'm a propulsion engineer and I work on building the rocket and getting inside the lock stings and just getting my hands dirty. But not everyone here is a propulsion engineer. So in order to use science communication and expand it, use that unique voice and use that unique viewpoint from your own experience. If you're not in the space industry yet and you don't know what you want to be doing, learn from the other science communicators, the different options, the different career options that you have, and give it a shot. Apply to fellowships, apply to scholarships, apply to jobs, and see what you like. I definitely didn't like my very first job, my very first internships. It took me 5 other internships to get to propulsion. So in order to expand science communication, find what you like, and if you know already what you like, use that viewpoint and express it in a unique way with your unique voice.
Love it, love it. Athena, we'll go to you next.
Okay, I would say I'm a big people connector. I love connecting to others, and finding community has been such an important aspect of science communication. So I would just say, really just be open to speaking with different people. I know right now, we're not out in public as much, but even when I would be in an airport, I would randomly get into a conversation with someone next to me on the plane about space travel. And that in itself is a form of communication. I think that talking about science, talking about space can be as common as having a cup of coffee. That's actually why I started a YouTube series that I have called Cafe Astro Athens. But I think that really speaks to what science communication is all about, and speaking to others and opening that conversation. So I would say to really continue that ripple effect is just talk to other people, talk to those that are in the industry, or just talk to your friends about a new discovery that you found out, and just connect with others. Events like this, there's so many different events, and go on Twitter and you see all the people that retweeted and then follow them, and all of a sudden it's this never ending, I think, level of connectivity in space. So that's what I would say.
Space Twitter. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I am. Karina, we'll go to you next.
So I think one of the big things is also being open to ideas. One of the biggest things about science is that it constantly changes as new information comes in. So being able to be open to ideas and to talk to others about talking about the concept of science, that it does change as you get new information. So being open about that and communicating that and having that concept, and like Athena said, just being able to also talk to others and talk to your immediate network, because sometimes they'll just realize that you'll know these things and you'll become the science communicator for them. You'll tell them, they'll come to you to say, hey, have you heard anything new? Since you always have insert topic here, news. But always, always, always be aware that science changes according to like the new information that comes in. So always have that in mind and be open-minded and try to get the people around you to also be open-minded.
Perfect. I give that a million thumbs
Oh
up.
my God,
Alyssa, we'll
Ron.
go to you next.
Yeah, I do think that is important. As science communicators, we continue teaching and sharing everything that we know, especially being, I guess, kind of involved in the industry. I know that several points kind of along in my life, I've kind of seen that gap or disassociation between what's actually going on in the space and science industry versus what the general public kind of has like an understanding of like what's going on. So I know like a good example for me, when the shuttle program ended, I had so many people coming to me, whether it was in public or even family members, what is Alyssa going to do now that there aren't astronauts anymore, now that the space program is finished? And I think that, even though obviously the space program didn't just up and close, there was still a lot more going on. The general public had that idea. And so I think that having space communicators and science communicators is so important because we are kind of bridging that gap and we're bringing more people into the network and having them really realize what's going on and all the amazing things and the amazing people who are involved in that industry. So I think just kind of in general, as space and science communicators, we just have to continue bridging that gap between, I guess, people who are directly involved in that industry and then just the general public, because I definitely believe that in general with what's going on in space, we need that public interest to kind of back us and support us and, be there rooting us on no matter what it's doing, whether it's an experiment, whether it's something as big as going to Mars, whatever it may be, but having that interest is so important.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Jake, we're going to go to you next, man.
Yeah, well, I got to say, it's getting hard to answer these questions thoughtfully after all these great people have already taken a swing at it. So maybe I'll just echo a couple of things that some of them have said. Sometimes I think there's a little bit of a mystique around science communicators, as if there's some sort of upper echelon of people, but there's no line where you aren't and then are one. The second you tell someone something interesting about science, you're a science communicator. And maybe, some of us are part-time, some of us are more part-time than others. That's just really a different velocity of the same thing, right? And so don't be afraid to take on that role. Every time someone talks to you about a topic that's STEM related that you're interested and passionate about, that's an opportunity for you to do science communication, and every little bit puts a little bit of good into the world, and that's really the most important thing. You have to meet people where they are, and so that's kind of a skill that you build over time. When someone who's not normally connected, isn't living and breathing this stuff every day, when they come up to you with a question, you have to kind of suss out where are they in their journey on understanding this, and you can really tailor that message to them. And sometimes they don't need to know everything. They need just that help to take the next step. You give them a little bit, they take that next step, they'll come back to you if they want more, and then you can keep going with it, right? So sometimes that's, for passionate people like us, it can be really oh, I'm gonna tell you everything I know about this because you're interested, and you just gonna vomit a bunch of information onto them. That's not really the best way to go, but so just meet people where they are, and take that opportunity to just do a little bit of communication, because now you are a science communicator and you are doing good work.
Wonderful. Raquel?
Yeah, I think something that we can do to help advance the cause of science communication is I keep coming back to empathy. It is so important, and I think Jake just touched a little bit on this, is trying to understand where your audience is at. Don't talk at them, have a conversation with your audience. Try to understand where it is that they're coming from. Like, try to find the thing that excites them and hang on to that in everyday conversations like Athena had, but even through your social media channels, people will tell you, oh, that's something really exciting, and then lean into that. And I think the power in this is that you're going to have an educated public who will then vote on issues later on that will advance the science industry itself. So yeah, I think empathy, coming at it from understanding where your audience is and what they want, and giving them that, and that is what I think can be the most powerful thing that you can do.
Love it. And Kenny, we'll go to you next, sir.
So I'll make it quick. I'd say that the best way to do this is to tell your story. Your story is unique to you. You never know how it's going to connect or resonate with someone else, and it could potentially send them down a path toward where they, do something great in STEM, where maybe they're the next administrator at NASA, or maybe they're on these next crewed missions. So you never really know what you could say to someone that could impact them in some way and keep them going. Like for whatever reason, maybe they have a connection between you guys have a connection over fitness. I'll bring up, Kevin, for example. A lot of us know Kevin, and a lot of us know he was on, Ninja Warrior, for example. So, a lot of people might talk about fitness, or you can talk about like Kayla Robinson, who ties music and art into STEM and different things like that. And like I said, some early to you.
Wait a second, who's Kevin DeBruin?
We don't really know. We don't know him too much.
We don't know who you are, Kevin J. DeBruin, fit rocket scientist.
We definitely know him. Like I said, in some way, I mean, and me and Kevin, met over social media, and it was just, a connection that we had, and we still talk to this day. So it's kind of like, you never know what the connection is going to be. So tell your own story. You never know how it's going to impact someone else. That's what I'd say.
And I did want to back up because I didn't interrupt you talking about Kayla, who I love and who was actually one of our first choices for a panel. And she was busy. So I don't want to interrupt while you're talking about how awesome she is. So finish that because I apologize, but I just had to do the plug for Kev.
Oh, no, that's fine. Like I said, Kayla Robinson, she ties a lot of her art, her music. She plays guitar, I believe, and she ties that into STEM a lot. So, we're the industry's small. Like I said to you yesterday, Ron, it's surprising how many people know each other once you just bring up one person in it, and we're all connected. So I say tell your own individual story, and it'll take you far.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the horn one last time, let everybody say any final thoughts of something they want to share. Give us all your social media information so that way people can follow you. And then we're going to take a screenshot, and then it's going to take us 3 hours to be able to tag everybody in here except for Karina. I'm actually going to change her name right now to my bratty little sister. There we go. Now her name's correct. That was awesome, Karina. It really was. So Diana, we'll go to you first. Give us a quick breakdown of any last thoughts that you have and where we can find you on social.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one last thought is not everybody is going to see the potential in you. And if you're a young student right now watching and you're trying to find an internship, you're trying to find a job after college in the midst of a pandemic, it is very difficult to get yourself situated in this industry, but it also can be very easy. It just don't lose hope when somebody doesn't see a potential in you, or when there is some difficulty or some challenge throughout your career. I definitely experienced it. My very first internship at Northrop, I went to an event my very first quarter in UCSD, and the recruiter looked at my resume and she said, "You don't seem passionate enough about aerospace. I can't offer you an internship." I was very devastated. The next day, I went to the same event and I met someone else who saw potential in me, took my resume, wrote my name and phone number, and I got an internship that summer. And that was my very first internship. So don't lose hope. But there is potential in you. Just keep trying and stay persistent and stay consistent. You can find me on the Arabian Stargazer across social media, thearabianstargazer.com, the Arabian Stargazer on Instagram, and my name, Diana Alsindy, on Twitter. I would love to continue the conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ron, for having me. This was really, really fun. I'm happy to be here.
You were wonderful. We were so glad to have you, and we'll do a final goodbye here in just a minute. Athena, we'll go to you. Tell us your final words with your new haircut and your red jacket and your shiny lights, and where people can find you on social.
I guess a final thought would be, I think it's so important to have a form of like a mentor, even if it's like a best friend of yours. I mean, just having someone who's like a big support in your life is so important. A professor of mine from college ended up being my mentor, even like through modeling, which is so crazy. And having that there is just so important, especially in I mean, clearly in the science industry, it's really important having someone who has the expertise of what you aspire to have in the future. So I think like looking for that is really awesome. And that ties in with having community. So that's why I love social media so much, and really lifting up the voice for space science through social media, because community is just so important. So that would be my final thought. And my name is Athena Brensberger, but my handle is AstroAthens. That's like on all the platforms, even astroathens.com. I just started a transmission that I send out once a month, which is like some really cool info of like history in space and like what you could see around the world. And then some of my favorite star apps and some other really cool features that are coming soon that I've been working on my website that I'll be airing soon.
Wonderful, wonderful. Karina, we'll go to you next.
Yes, and I hope you like my
she
name
did it.
change.
Third time's a charm.
And I hope you like the name change. But thanks for all the thumbs up. So my last words, I think, would be to just not give up on something if you're passionate about it. I definitely I did not think I was going to be in the industry. I didn't even think I would even do anything that I do now. And when I applied to a couple fellowships, like I didn't get in, and yet I met the person who introduced me to my current boss through those interview processes. So just don't give up on things that you actually really care about. You never know where the entry point is going to come. You never know where it is if you keep up. So just keep going, and just keep talking to people and keep talking to people about how passionate you are about the subject. And trust me, things will eventually work out. So just keep at it. Just play Don't Stop Believing in the background the whole time.
Are we gonna sing? Is that what we're doing? I can find it on YouTube, and we can like.
So science communicators, not singers.
I mean,
definitely better than
actually.
Listen, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, I think for my final thoughts and all, I think a biggest thing that I can really tell everyone who's watching is really just once you find something that you're interested in, whether it is related to science or space or whatever else you may be interested in, it's so important to actually talk about your dreams and talk about your goals and actually tell people what you're interested in doing, because you never really know where any opportunities are going to come from or what they can actually lead to. You could tell someone that you're interested in space and they know someone who knows someone who knows someone who works at NASA or any sort of connection. So you never really know where those kinds of situations can lead. So really always be open to telling people about your dreams and about your goals, because they can't help you if they don't know about it. So continue to talk about whatever it is you're passionate about. Don't be afraid to share that, because it can really lead to some great opportunities. There's always things that you can get involved with, even when you're young and in middle school, high school. Let's say you want to do robotics in space and you go to a robotic competition in high school. Tell someone that you're interested in space robotics specifically. Someone may have a connection that can let you learn more about it. So really just don't really be afraid to share your passions and your own goals. And then I guess to finish it all out, all of my social and stuff is under NASA Blueberry. That's kind of across everything. Sometimes there's a one thrown in there, but for the most part, NASA Blueberry. But yeah, thank you guys for having me.
It was awesome. Jake, we'll go to you next, broski.
So I think one of the big takeaways from this panel for me is that there's no wrong way to use social media. I'm just kind of really interested in all the different ways that these panelists have found to use social media as a way of outreach. And so maybe the lesson there is do whatever you want on social media, because there's no rules and it's what you want it to be, right? It's what you want it to make out of it. So keep doing that, everybody. I would be delighted for you to listen to my podcasts. You can find WeMartians on any podcast player, one word, WeMartians. And then, you can follow me on Twitter right there, and you'll get all that kind of content retweeted as well. So I hope to see you around.
Awesome. And we will go to you next, Raquel.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like in the past few years, there has been this flourish of science communicators, and I think it's a really exciting field to be in. And if you want to be a science communicator, but you feel like you don't have the experience, or you're not a scientist, or like you didn't do well in school, I think that you belong in science. You belong in science communication. As you can see from this panel, people have such different backgrounds, and I hope that you would just try. If that's something that you want to do, you want to talk about science and you want to talk about your excitement about space, but you're scared, just do it. Just start, and you will figure it out along the way. And my social media stuff. Yes. So I'm the space geologist on Instagram, and on Twitter, I'm Raquel Nuno, and you can go to raquelnuno.com for my website. Thank you so much for having me. This was such an honor.
I definitely think I've been calling you Nuno for a while, and it was Nuno. And now that I know, I feel pretty terrible about that. I've been calling Bobak Fordowski for like 6 years, and I finally figured it out the other day. So sorry about that, Bobak, my bad. So we're going to go to you next, Kitty, to wrap us up. Your turn, man.
Oh, my turn. The message that I would leave for each and every one of you today is that this is a very challenging field. Everyone on this panel, everyone that you speak to in STEM, academia, anything like that, you're going to hear a story of a challenge that they have overcome. Each of us has a unique story, a unique challenge that they've overcome, and that I can say for myself, I'm happy that I overcome that challenge or overcame that challenge. So my encouragement to you would be to keep going. Seek out a mentor. Someone has been where you're trying to go. Seek their advice, seek their wisdom as you go throughout each and every step of this journey. But most importantly, more than anything, I want you to pay it forward, give it back in some way. You don't have to be a science communicator. You don't have to be a mentor to 100 people. You don't have to have 100,000 followers on any of your social media platforms. But I do encourage you to touch someone else's life, touch their career, encourage them and push them forward to be the next generation of explorers, anything like that. So my social medias, Kenny F. Harris, right there at the bottom, point the wrong side, right here at the bottom, Kenny F. Harris, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that. You can find me on there. But thank you so much for having me. Thank you for hearing us tonight. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you all. Godspeed.
I can't thank everybody here enough except for Ron Sound, because that totally gave me an echo there a minute ago. I apologize. What nobody may know is that after all this day today, finally for some reason my microphone wouldn't work with my headphones, and I don't know why. So I've been listening to it through my phone on those headphones, and it's just been a weird thing. So right at the end, of course, something had to go wrong because it's one of those days. I can't thank everybody enough for being on here. At one point outside of the summit, we had 900 people watching across all the different social media platforms. That is by far the biggest stream that I have ever done. And it's because of all the people here that said yes, that you would come on and talk about the very cool things that you were up to. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm proud to call you friends. Thank you for joining us on the summit tonight. And for everybody, this is the end of day one. Just day one. We've got 3 more days. There's going to be some really cool stuff happening. Stick around with us. There's going to be, we're going to get more in depth throughout the week about what it's going to take to get humans to Mars, to get them to survive, and what all the major organizations are doing. So I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us today. It's been an incredible day. So yeah, we're going to wrap up with the obvious choice, which is don't stop believing. Just for a few seconds, so that way we don't get sued. But we've got to do it, right? We've got to do it.
We're gonna sing. Yes.
We're gonna get a YouTube takedown now.
We're gonna get a YouTube takedown.
I feel like I need to record this.
Okay, that's enough. I don't want to get us in trouble, and then they take this down. So thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna see you all bright and early in the morning, and we're gonna go late tomorrow night. I saw the plant. I forgot about that. We all got to do the. I don't have a plant in here, and I can't go get one. So I'll put my Van Gogh MOBA globe. It's the closest thing I have. So
we all have plans.
We got but somebody's got to take the screenshot and send it to us. So everybody smiling. 3, 2, 1. And somebody send me that. Tag us all on social media. We're definitely going to do that too. And watch, we're all going to have 1 million comments in the morning because now we're the plant group apparently. So thank you all so much for watching. We will see you all tomorrow on day 2. Good night.
Bye,
I want to go eat for the first time since 4 a.m. Boom.
Do that. See you.